On our planet, there are still mountains that have never been climbed. They're some of the last true blank spaces on the map, guarded by ice, storms, and their own sheer scale. But there's a stranger, more haunting category. The mountains that have been climbed once and never again. These aren't just remote peaks, they are monuments to a single moment in time. They mark expeditions that succeeded against all odds, but left behind a legacy so dangerous, so tragic, or so mysterious that they became forbidden territory. This is the story of those mountains, the deadly expeditions that reached their summits, and the bizarre events that turned these triumphant peaks into ghost mountains, ensuring no one would ever return. Our story begins in the heart of the Karakoram, a range known for its savage beauty and brutal weather. Tucked among giants like K2, there's a fortress of rock and ice known as K6, soaring to over 7,200 meters. K6 isn't as famous as its neighbors, but it's a behemoth in its own right, with a dark, threatening presence. Its main summit has been touched by human hands just one time. That moment came in the summer of 1970. A young, ambitious Austrian team arrived in Pakistan, led by a 4-year-old named Eduard Kolbmüller, a man who'd become an Austrian mountaineering legend. The team was shockingly young. The oldest was 28, and some were barely out of their teens. They had driven a VW bus and a truck all the way from Vienna, an adventure in itself, ready to make their mark. But K6 wasn't their plan. Their first objective was suddenly closed. Their second choice had its permit withdrawn by the government, no explanation given. At the last minute, they were simply handed a permit for K6. Imagine showing up in a foreign country, your goal thwarted, and being pointed toward a 7,000-meter peak with almost zero information. One climber, Fred Pressel, later recalled, "In the very last moment, we got some tips about where is the mountain, and a thin story about an unsuccessful attempt by the Italians." That was it. That's all they had. After weeks of reconnaissance, they began their push. The weather was glorious. They worked their way up, fixing ropes through steep slabs and unstable towers of glacial ice. But just 250 meters from the summit stood the final obstacle, a sheer, vertical rock tower. At this altitude, technical rock climbing is an act of pure desperation. Their first attempt on the tower was beaten back. K6 had won for the moment. After retreating to gather their strength, Kolbmüller and Gerd Pressel went for it again. What followed was a masterpiece of high-altitude climbing. Using artificial aid, placing gear into rock cracks, and pulling on it to move upward, Kolbmüller led the final vertical pitch. It's a grade that's manageable at sea level, but at over 7,000 meters, it's a soul-crushing fight for every inch. He fixed 100 meters of rope, securing the way. Finally, on July 17th, 1,974 climbers stood on the summit of K6 Main. They'd done it. They'd conquered the mountain they were never supposed to climb. Yet, in the 50-plus years since, no one has ever repeated their success. So why has K6 Main been climbed only once? The answer is in the climb itself. That final summit tower is an extreme technical barrier at an extreme altitude. While its smaller sub-peaks, K6 West and K6 Central, have been climbed by elite alpinists in recent years, the true summit has rejected all who followed. The young Austrians didn't just climb a mountain, they climbed it so well against such odds that they inadvertently sealed the door behind them. From the technical challenge of K6, we travel east to the edge of the Tibetan plateau. Here, the rules of the game change. The biggest obstacles aren't always rock and ice. Sometimes, they're politics and red tape. Welcome to the Great Bend of the Yarlung Tsangpo River, one of the most dramatic and inaccessible landscapes on Earth. The river carves the deepest gorge on the planet, flanked by two giants, the 7,782-meter Namcha Barwa, and to its north, the 7,294-meter Gyala Peri. Their stories are shrouded in mystery, not because of a single harrowing expedition, but because the world they inhabit is almost entirely closed off. Let's start with Gyala Peri. It's a stunning pyramid of a peak, first climbed in 1986 by a Japanese expedition. The climb was an arduous month-and-a-half-long undertaking. After 2 failed summit attempts, a trio of climbers finally reached the top on Halloween, October 31st, 1,986. Since that day, the official record shows no other successful ascents. Gyala Peri became a once-climbed mountain. The reason isn't a terrifying summit block or a deadly storm. The reason is that Gyala Peri is in Tibet. For decades, climbing in the region has been a bureaucratic minefield, with the Chinese government tightly controlling which peaks are open. Permits are expensive, hard to get, and entire regions can be declared off-limits without warning. Gyala Peri stands not as an unclimbed challenge, but as an inaccessible one, a ghost rendered untouchable by human laws. Its sister peak, Namcha Barwa, shares a similar fate, but with a more tragic backstory. For years, it held the title of the highest unclimbed peak in the world. The quest to conquer it came to a head in 1991 with a powerful joint Sino-Japanese expedition. Then, tragedy struck. A key Japanese climber, Hiroshi Onishi, was killed by an avalanche. The devastated team pressed on, but was ultimately defeated by violent winds just 220 meters from the top. The next year, in 1992, they returned with grim determination. They knew this was likely their last chance, as rumors swirled that the mountain would be closed to outsiders from 1,993 onward. After being relentlessly battered by bad weather, a window finally opened. In an incredible display of teamwork, a total of 11 climbers reached the summit in 2 waves on October 30th. The world's highest virgin peak had finally been climbed, and then, just as rumored, the doors slammed shut. The 1,992 ascent remains the only recorded summit of Namcha Barwa. Like Gyala Peri, it became a forbidden zone, its slopes silent and empty. It's a potent reminder that sometimes the most insurmountable walls aren't made of rock, but of red tape. The stories of these mountains are a testament to the raw, untamable spirit of adventure. It's a spirit we celebrate here. If you're finding this journey into the unknown as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon. You'll get more documentaries that explore the world's most remote and mysterious places. Your support helps us continue to tell these incredible stories. Now, back to the expedition. Some mountains are forbidden by governments, others by their sheer cliffs. But there's a third kind. Mountains that try to break you with soul-crushing attrition. Peaks so long and remote that climbing them demands superhuman endurance. This is the story of Muchu Chhish. Located in Pakistan's Karakoram range, Muchu Chhish stands at 7,453 meters. For years, it was famous as the highest times, accessible times, unclimbed mountain on Earth. The world's actual highest unclimbed mountain is Gangkhar Puensum in Bhutan, but climbing is banned there, making it more of a political ghost than a physical challenge. Muchu Chhish, on the other hand, was open for business. The mountain itself was the law, and its law was brutal. Muchu Chhish has no easy way up. The only feasible-looking route was its staggeringly long south ridge. Numerous expeditions tried and failed. In the 2022, Czech climbers became obsessed. Pavel Kozinek led 3 separate attempts, all defeated by terrible weather or dangerously deep snow. The mountain was a fortress. Its defense, not a single wall, but an endless siege of distance, altitude, and unstable conditions. Then came the summer of 2024. A new Czech team, Zdeněk Hák, Radoslav Gro, and Jaroslav Bansky, arrived in Pakistan. Ironically, Muchu Chhish was their backup plan after an expedition to Afghanistan fell through. With a week-long weather window as their only chance, they had to go. The final push began on July 1st, 2024. The first day was a grueling 1,400-meter ascent. The second and third days were pure back-breaking labor, fighting through steep ice and snow so deep they needed special snowshoes just to move. By day 4, they reached 7,200 meters, the high point of the previous year's attempt. They were in the death zone, exhausted, and it started to snow. It seemed the mountain's curse might strike again. But on the morning of July 5th, the sky cleared. This was their shot. In a daring move, they left their tent and bivouac gear behind to save weight and move fast. They were committing everything. After crossing several false summits that drained their last reserves, they reached a rock tower just below the top. Then, suddenly, at 10:20 a.m. local time, there was nowhere higher to go. They were on the summit. They had conquered the highest climbable, unclimbed mountain in the world. As of late 2025, theirs remains the only ascent in history. The sheer length and danger of the route, the need for a perfect weather window, and the extreme physical toll it demands make it a challenge few have the skill, or perhaps the stubbornness, to undertake. The Czechs didn't just find a route, they endured one. In doing so, they may have left footprints that will remain alone for a very long time. While peaks like K6 have dramatic, well-documented histories, the world of once-climbed mountains is filled with more obscure figures. Their stories are often fragmented, but they all prove how a summit can be sealed off from humanity. Take Karakoram I, a 7,221-meter peak in Tibet. For years, it was another contender for the title of highest unclimbed peak. Its main summit is brutally technical and prone to severe, unpredictable weather. A Dutch expedition in 2001 attempted it, but turned back, deciding it was far too dangerous. Political issues added another layer of difficulty, and until a Chinese team reportedly summited in August 2024, Karakoram's main summit remained one of the highest unconquered and likely untouchable peaks on the planet. Then there is Saser Kangri II East, a 7,518-meter giant in the Indian Karakoram. For a long time, there was confusion over which of its two summits was the true peak. An Indo-Japanese team climbed the West Peak in 1984, thinking it was the higher one. It was only later determined that the East summit was taller. This status finally fell on the 24th of August 2011, when an American team made the first ascent in a climb so masterful, it earned them the prestigious Palais d'Or award. The sheer difficulty of their route has kept it a singular achievement. And in Pakistan, there's Sangmarmar Sar, a stunning pyramid of white marble. A Japanese team made the first and only ascent back in 1984. Despite its incredible beauty, it's overshadowed by its larger neighbors and has faded into obscurity. Its solitary ascent is a reminder that sometimes a mountain becomes a ghost simply because the world's attention turns elsewhere. These forgotten peaks all tell a piece of the same story. A mountain doesn't need a curse to guard its summit. All it needs is a wall of vertical rock in the death zone, a government's stamp of denial, a relentless storm, or simply to be forgotten by the ever-moving tide of human ambition. From the sheer walls of Pakistan to the forbidden frontiers of Tibet, the mountains climbed only once show us where human achievement and natural defiance collide. They aren't just stats in a record book, they're stories etched in ice and stone. The ascent of K6 was a story of youthful audacity, a climb so hard it's never been repeated. The conquests of Gyala Peri and Namcha Barwa are tales of political intrigue, where reaching the summit was the beginning of a government-imposed silence. And the recent triumph on Muchu Chhish is a modern epic of pure endurance. These are ghost mountains. They stand as monuments to a single, fleeting moment of success. Their slopes are haunted not by spirits, but by the memory of what it took to get to the top, and the profound reasons, be they physical, political, or psychological, that have kept everyone else away. They remind us that in a world we think we've fully explored, there are still places that resist, places that give up their secrets only once. These summits remain quiet, isolated, and untouched, holding their single story close. And maybe the fact that some parts of our world remain singular and mysterious is the most triumphant legacy of all.